English translation. So the Commission of Human Rights contacted me. This was a few days ago, maybe a week's past. I'm down to like one more sip of my water. Yeah, that's as much as it is. And then I'm pretty much dead. I've tried asking for people. Some said they will help me, but they never replied. Even say they will reply in the same day. Yeah, I've tried a lot of things. This is my last, so-called last hurrah, I guess. And then at the very least, after this, I will try I don't know what I will try. Some of you may be asking, well, why are you sharing a private email? And Article 3 Bill of Rights, the privacy of Section 3, the privacy of communication and correspondence shall be inviolable except upon lawful order of the court or when a public safety or order requires otherwise. So I can't share anything else to the world. It's gone, you know. Last hit. This is, and the Commission of Human Rights won't reply anyways. This has been several days. Definitely won't. I'm also uploading the Filipino version, but that's more, I don't know. Basically, you share that. I tried sharing it in a legal Facebook group online. They rejected it, you know. Reddit won't help. I actually got cyberbullied there. The legal group was a free legal advice Facebook group. Okay, before my tongue dries up. Dear Mr. Hui, greetings from CHR National Capital Region, CHR-NCR office. This involves your email to Ateneo de Manila University Human Rights Center regarding the help you are requesting. Based on our understanding, you are in and out in a rehabilitation center for a span of 5 years and made to drink medicine against your will. Regarding what you are saying about being involuntarily confined in a rehabilitation center, we would like to ask your permission to acquire the contact details of your parents and the rehabilitation center. The information you will give will help us address your problem as well as acquire the viewpoint from their perspective. We assure you that all information will remain confidential. You also mentioned that you once approached the CHR before. May we know the details of your complaints before. Thank you and respectfully, Commission of Human Rights, National Capital Region. My reply: I approached you before in order to report a lesbian who was involuntarily confined inside Medical City Ortigas because her father did not want her to be in a relationship with a woman. According to the person that identified herself as her girlfriend, she was independently living away from her dad, but due to her father knowing the police, a policeman came in to tell them that her company car had a broken tire, which required them to visit the police station. Once they agreed to go with the police, that was when she was kidnapped, and dragged inside Medical City for a duration of 1 year above, which is where I met her once I got sent in for the third time. I've been sent into three places. First, Plainview Custodial Ward, where they waited for my grandmother to die before they discharged me. Second, Medical City. The same goes for the third and fourth time. The final place is Life Change Recovery Center. Due to my parents' capacity to lie without needing to provide records for their statements, and the bias people have for their words because they are not the ones mentally ill, I have lost faith in people who want to talk to them. It's not like you contacted me before when I shelled out 10,000 Filipino pesos for an attorney only for the girlfriend of the lesbian to back out due to, in her words, fear that the lesbian's father would aim for her next. Like most people sent inside psych wards, many end up hiding and faking their trauma. Some accept their condition without seeking second opinions and taking the words of their first psych ward psychiatrist on face value. Others believe in the doctor's explanations, even if the doctor is spouting 90% lies and only 10% truths, knowing that many just want to be released rather than be critical thinkers of their situation. Example: I was promised I will be discharged once the business plan was fleshed out. It took 6 months before the topic was ever mentioned again in therapy. It took 1 to 2 days to make the business plan from that original family therapy session. Then I was promised that I only needed to talk with the entrepreneurship consultant before I can be discharged soon. 3 months passed and there was no consultant. Dr. Violeta Bautista would only repeat that she remembered and that the consultant had said that they were willing to talk to me. Only COVID-19 quarantine discharged me and everyone inside. My business plan that was written on my notebook confiscated, multiple pages written and explored and re-explored due to the lengthy time the missing consultant failed to come, all taken away. A few of the lies said of me without evidence. Plainview: I was not sleeping, I was not eating. Medical City the first time: I was not sleeping, I was mixing my foods. No mention of the second opinion I handed to my parents regarding my grandmother, who was discharged despite the fact that she had a heart condition and immediately upon being removed from her hospital bed, got a heart attack again. No mention that no doctor in Plainview told me I had bipolar, but instead it was my cousin who relayed my illness during visitation hours. Medical City the second time: my mother promised me she would contact my counselor in better sight. After 6 months of being discharged, the counselor revealed that he was not contacted at all. They said they were willing to give me an executive health checkup, but then later on they will say Medical City has a policy where people inside psych wards cannot be sent up to the wellness center, and I receive a half-assed check-up full of hands-only patting and smiling apathetic doctors not concerned about my chronic fatigue and extreme eye soreness. So extreme that when I had an operation for my eye and was prescribed anesthesia, that eye soreness remains the most painful thing I have felt in that area of my body compared to the anesthesia or the operation. Months later, upon my discharge, Dr. Pimentel of Metropolitan Hospital proved that I indeed had an eye condition, but of course it wasn't as severe. Inside Medical City Psychiatric Ward, they didn't even recommend an eye doctor, even as a person besides me was having his eyes checked. They merely added an MRI checkup in order to justify the fact that they treated me in an expensive manner. Medical City the third time, they claimed that I was the one who wanted to send myself in after I had correctly assumed that they were going to send me in. I then told them, call me when I am scheduled to go in before I left my house abruptly. No savings, not much money. It was only through gambling that I had enough money to pay for hotels and motels. The reason they said this was because they had no actual explanation for why I was the one who knocked on the psychiatric ward doors, asking the resident doctor if I still had time to switch doctors. The resident doctor merely told me to go inside. According to Dr. Imelda Batar, my current psychiatrist at the time, she has no memory of this, and that is why I soon left her, setting aside the gaslighting she gave me in Pearl Condominium, one of her clinic's location. Life Change Recovery Center. My parents spoke fun at how they never mentioned any gambling to the doctors, and it might even have been me who brought it up. And yet once I was cursed with the label gambling addiction, they were so happy to move all my items from the place I was renting into their house, where I will not even be handed a quarantine pass to have my foot wound checked. They wholeheartedly believed the statement Dr. Violeta said about how my desire to go to another country is part of my mental illness. Was there any Filipino who was going to Israel or any other country in the world to bring the Soteria house here besides me? Was the budget for the plane ticket topped off? No, all it took was Dr. Violeta shrugging her head and mentioning months later that she was in talks with my parents to pay for a companion. A companion that will monitor my movements and guarantee that I will not be able to seek out legal help against bastards like the TransMed ambulance staff who kidnapped me while saying to my face, "I don't care about your human rights," among many things they did, such as suffocating me with a blanket. It is not my suffering alone that I sought Ateneo Law out who then contacted you. At the age of 34 years old, my future has been ripped apart. They did not only take 5 years from me, but in those 5 years, I lost my independent film, which needed only 1 month before heading towards the shooting phase. Not only that, Dr. Batar used my survival mechanism to cling to my cell phone, desperately waiting for my staff's reply as evidence for mania, while one of her henchmen called me Baho Baho, or smelly in Filipino, as another twisted and yanked at my arm until I let the cell phone go. To set an example of people I failed to help, I mentioned one John Coss of Portland, who according to his Facebook profile only had 6 months left and was stealing food due to akathisia. Unlike most possible scammers, John shared his complete address, which put him at risk online. Only through poker and some lucky, small cash boosts from other gambling, which I then converted back to poker, had I earned savings throughout my years of being sent in and out. Even then, I knew I could not simply build a large amount. It would simply break my heart to do so if once inside the void I could not only cash out my money, but I would be told I needed to stay while my world and the world of the people around me are burning, would have simply destroyed my my true mental stability, which right now it's there, it's close to hitting that point, as people who see my Reddit posts will know. True enough, I only have potential money now to hire a lawyer or buy a plane ticket to Israel. But with gambling addiction looming over my head, I am forced to live as a fugitive, and not a good one at that. If you've seen my other YouTube videos, I was not born with a record of fighting with anyone, with stealing anything, with scamming anyone. I didn't even play in house games, which was where most of the profits were in poker, but were technically illegal. Was I the perfect person? No. But in a world where every month I have eradicated every notes, lessons, plans in order to prepare for outpatient therapy week, where one wrong sentence leads to increase of drugs, which Dr. Batar did to me, how is it ever possible for me to live and be employed in a high salary earning job that will quickly and definitely create a Soteria house, a legitimate one, here in the Philippines for people like me? How can I afford a great lawyer when law firms turn their back on me at my mere desire to ask for their costs? For example, I've contacted David Sheffer, there's a Detroit civil lawyer Sharif and Valentine. Uh, I know that I don't know the specifics, so I could look it up, but I don't know if I'm saying the correct names. Of course, the Vina law firm has informed me they still don't have an office set up. It's 5,000 pesos for a 1 hour consultation. My parents gave me money all the time when I didn't need it to. When I needed them to be my parents, what did they do? They guaranteed that I will be sent to cockroach-infested places like Life Change Recovery Center that ban basketball practice because the admins planted some flowers outside. Their excuse? Medical City is so expensive. How much is Medical City and how long was my longest in there? 6 months at the cost of 100,000 Filipino peso per month. 600 equals 600,000 pesos. In comparison, I was inside Life Change Recovery Center for 1 year and 3 months. Had COVID not happened, it would have been continued at a cost of 45,000 per month plus 20,000 for one psychiatric exam. 45,000 times 15 equals 675,000 pesos. How did they save money? I'm fighting not just for my human rights but for everyone's human rights. Marcos Ong, who was inside for 5+ years until COVID freed him, was not even given a legitimate family therapy session with LCRC's family therapists. Everyone knew you had to have a session with Dr. Violeta Bautista in order to be discharged. Despite being there for years, Marcos Ong would always waver between accepting his situation and seeing the truth of the deceit that his family put him through. He tried one more time to get a family therapy session. A family therapy session with the likes of Tan Chochong, Dr. Tan Chochong, who will play with his emotions, stating had he sought him out instead, he would have gotten out of a psych ward sooner. The likes of Dr. Violeta will tell him that she wasn't his doctor, with a smile. The ultimate joke, they finally gave Marcos a family therapy session with Dr. Randy De Leosa. Why? Because Dr. Randy knew his family. There have been zero record of anyone getting discharged from a Dr. De Leosa family therapy, most likely because Dr. Randy only talks to his patients once while inside his psych ward. They didn't just want Marcos Ong inside, they want to play with his emotions just as they played with mine. And you wanted to interview doctors and parents for a complete interpretation of the facts. The fact is someone right here is emailing you that he has been sent 5 different times in different solitary prisons. That is against the law in the Philippines, according to Bill of Rights. And you want to ignore and delay things as much as possible while new victims and old victims like me could potentially be sent back in at a very high rate, if not be constantly monitored and be heavily guarded. For the future Marcos Ongs who could not be discharged, for the future Sister Tess who were left cooking inside and praying all the time inside their rooms, for the Mom Bets whom staff would happily proclaim as helping her because they kept her inside too long and she developed anxiety to go out with zero treatment given to her. I cannot justify your false investigation, especially since being a mental health organization, you should know better already of the torture we receive without needing to ask a specific individual when the facts are laid out. 5 years. 5 years. It can't get any clearer than that. Every day there are new victims spoon-fed into the psychology of obedience here in the Philippines. Many, even those that know the DSM clearly, don't know about the PDM, don't know about the Stanford Prison Experiments, the Milgram Experiment, the Basaglia Law, and the Soteria House. Psychiatrists admit that they know each other, and rather than criticizing each other's diagnosis, they do not even rescue the victims of their fellow psychiatrists. I have, for example, been subjected to risperidone, Was I analyzed by the next psychiatrist? No. They simply switched to olanzapine and escitalopram oxalate. Then the next psychiatrist switched it to clozaril. Then the next psychiatrist, lamotrigine and abilify. The next, Depakote, lithium, tegretol, and quetiapine. But what do my relatives, especially the one who said to me, "Here is where you will be making toy dinosaurs for your grandmother's operation," in reference to my first psych ward where I was discharged only after my grandmother's death. She said to me, "Eat your medicine and you will not be sent back in." This is the same lie that every psychologist and one psychiatrist who later backed out told me. I'm mentioning every psychologist and every psychiatrist that I met. Better Steps. There was one, I don't remember where she is. She was in Quezon City. There is Psych Consult, Dr. Banji Bautista. There is Dr. Evelyn Gapos, Dr. Imelda Batar. There are the counselors of LTRC, Ma'am Alaya, this people, all of them, they say things like that. They revert to that when they have no answers, but then they don't even understand things. They once they try to understand, let's say, gambling, and they're surprised that I haven't been gambling for 4 months before I was sent in. They were like, what are you doing during that time? I was studying gambling. Did the studying gambling need to be gambling? No, you need to look at hand history. Every person can YouTube that. They don't know that. They were like, "Oh, you seem to have been changed by the medicine, and now I've seen improvement in you." Dr. Evelyn Gapos, St. Luke's. After a thought diary where she saw all my anger, she will all of a sudden say, "Well, I think I need to, like, my relative is sick. I think I need to leave or something. You can always contact me again." She couldn't handle the fact that there was so much wrong about her assessment. She didn't knew me when I was in the psych ward. She didn't knew me when I was out of the psych ward. This is the same lie that every psychologist and one psychiatrist who later backed out told me. I ask you, which medicine frees people from psych wards? My parents admittedly lost my records, and yet they claim they can know how many months I have not taken my medicine. They don't even know how to close their online accounts once I got in until the banks cut off their credit card. Why don't you collect the facts about the victims? Because that record is severely lacking compared to the ones other countries have internationally regarding things like suicide after psych ward discharges, psych ward environment studies. Medical City there was a guy investigating. It's part of this international standards thing. Guy basically walked into our occupational therapy, didn't even say hi to a patient. I was the one who greeted him, so I knew. Psychiatric investigations regarding how much they lie. Philippine health registry regarding specific psychiatric drugs that are not paid by pharmaceuticals. Here, like not other countries, not indirect imports, just like legitimate here. Investigation studies, blackmails, gaslighting, informed education for those inside. Are they being taught to heal themselves, or are their liberties simply being taken away? I can't drink. I need just in case later on. So my voice is cracking, and I don't even think it's cracking. It's just dry. So I'll try to rush this last few. Do they know Franco Basaglia? Are they being taught to heal themselves, or are their liberties simply being taken away? Do they know Franco Basaglia? Franco Basaglia taught liberty. Can they, for example, understand that the Dr. Randy Deliosa, who only talks to you once in a year, is not capable in any way of observing you, even if the excuse is that a nurse is observing you? Can patients understand that when a nurse tells you that you are being suddenly prescribed Depakote, being your lithium is no longer enough, that is not medical diagnosis, nor is Dr. Randy telling you your patients just want you to have a simple life, and then ignoring you when you mention you need to build a soteria house. Notice how barely any media is released where people relay their whole story once they are inside a psych ward for 1 year above. It's easy to tell the story of the drug addict mixed with psychiatric incarceration, or the person who was acting weirdly and now feels the system helped them, even though they are still living a mediocre life only monitored, so they are acting less weird until the next cycle. But liberty, democracy, freedom, and the God-given right to say you are healed mostly come from the psychiatric experts. A psychiatric community that is far too often richer, more arrogant, and living in an ivory tower that many in the international community calls the neoliberal system, profiteering and leeching off of the bottom few, while lying about things like having acupuncture in their pamphlets and not telling their patients about how long past privilege inside their facility until a patient of a different doctor informs them. So with all due respect, you want to help liars, even though you might save me, though you didn't before, I won't help you. And that's basically the English translation I sent. And I'm done.